Some of you may be familiar with the story where the master teacher Jesus encounters some of his disciples. And they are arguing among themselves, and there in their midst is a boy whose father had brought him to be healed. And they're upset because they can't do it, and they're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, Jesus becomes really frustrated with them, and he says some things about them and some things to them at that point, which is why I was in a session yesterday, and one of the people there said, I know Jesus was meek and mild, and several of us stopped and said, no. When he needed to get things taken care of and say things, he did. And in this case, he said some things, and if you read it in the Greek, he was even more pointed toward them than it's kind of been mellowed out and made nice in the English translations that we have of it. But basically, after he said all that he needed to say to them, and he healed the boy, then he said to them, if you were to have faith as a mustard seed, and many of us are familiar with this, faith as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, be moved, and it would be moved. And now, I know a lot of people listen to this, they get caught up in this, and you will hear people talking about a mustard seed faith, and they talk about the size of the mustard seed. And I know a lot of us, if you were to look at a mustard seed is very, very tiny. And a lot of us would say, but my faith is larger than this tiny mustard seed. It's much bigger than this tiny mustard seed. My faith is a whole lot bigger than that mustard seed. Don't you think your faith is? But the mountain's still here, you might say. The mountain's still here. When you begin to look at those things that you say, I believe, I pray, I do the things that I feel like that I need to do to be a responsible, spiritually oriented person, but the mountain's still here. There are many things in our experiences that can be mountain-like, many things that can seem to be very, very vast and very, very large. And to say to someone that all you have to do if you have the faith as a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain would get up and it would move into the sea. Now we know that Jesus is really talking in more of metaphors and things like that, but there's still things in our lives that have mountain-like characteristics and qualities. Things we see that we feel like are just looming and so large and almost impossible to even in our minds think that we could transcend those things and get beyond those things. We're looking at that. I'm praying. I'm doing the stuff I need to do. I'm coming to Open Heart. I'm listening to this. I'm singing that. I'm meditating this way. I'm burning this incense. I'm smudging. I'm doing all the stuff that I need to do. But the mountain's still here. Those things in our lives can have mountain-like qualities. Why? If all I have to do is that, have faith as a mustard seed, why do I still have money problems? Why is it that I have situations and circumstances in my life? Maybe a loved one is hooked on drugs. Maybe I may have issues myself. Maybe I have relatives in jail who right now is seeking to get out, and we don't know. Somebody who's sick in my life, my relationship's not going the way that I wish it would go to. That my spouse is not acting right, my significant other is not doing the things that they need to do in my case. All of those things, they haven't acknowledged their relationship with all of this. All of those things, I had enough faith, if I had faith as a mustard seed, that all would be behind me. And I know my faith is larger. Well, I'd like to introduce to you another way of looking at this text this morning. We focus on the size of the mustard seed so often, the size of it. But in addition to the size of the mustard seed, and I didn't know Aziza was going to read what she read this morning for the affirmative reading, but I'd like to focus on another aspect of the mustard seed. And that is the idea that Jesus knew who he was talking to. He knew his audience. He understood them. He knew that they were people who made subsistence, their livelihood, and got along in life by farming and planting and growing things that gave them food to eat. And he also knew that when he talked to them about a mustard seed, they might look at it and think, first of all, a mustard seed is a tiny seed that grows into a large bush. But I think that there was something else that they understood as Jesus began to talk to them about it. It's a very tiny seed. It grows into a large bush. But there's something else that happens to that seed. He knew that they knew that if they put that seed in the earth, that seed would come into contact with the forces of the universe. If you put that seed in the ground, the sunlight and the water and the dirt and all of the nutrients that were there, the moonlight, the stars, all of that energy would begin to act upon that seed. When the seed made itself available to that which it was planted in and that which it was a part of, things will begin to happen to that seed. Transformation will begin to happen. Things will start to change. When it gave itself over to that place, it would understand that it was a part of a living universe that would nurture it. A living universe that would care for it. A living universe that would sustain it. They understood that as it began to grow, as things happened to it, first of all, what the seed would have to do is it would have to come out of itself, if you will. And when it came out of itself, it would give over in a way, it would die to its old self and begin living its new self. And that's a part of our spiritual transformation. That's a part of the aspect of faith that I'm talking about. That when we make ourselves available to the presence and the power of God, there are some things, some aspects of us, some ways that we used to do and stuff that we used to think that would get us by, that we have to give over to. We give ourselves over to. We allow ourselves to die to those things. And as we die to those things, new life begins to happen. You hear in traditional places, oftentimes in Christianity, people talking about being born again. And really, ultimately, being born again is about giving ourselves over to the creative forces of the universe in such a way that new life begins to happen. And so when Jesus was saying to them, faith as a grain of a mustard seed, he was saying that when we begin to make ourselves available to all that is, things begin to happen. We experience triumph over death. When the grain sprouts, it's victory over death. And that bush grows in the midst of those great opposing forces that are out there. Because as it begins to grow, there will be those things that are there that will try to keep it from growing to its fullest. Winds come, but it keeps on growing. Drought might come, but it keeps on growing. Storms come, but it keeps on growing. Drought comes, but it keeps on growing. Things come, but it keeps on growing. Pests come, but it keeps on growing. When it gives itself over to that, it keeps on growing. In your life, things are going to happen. Things are going to come, situations and circumstances and people and all kinds of stuff will come your way. But the thing that I'm here to tell you this morning, keep on growing. Keep on growing. You have before you, behind you, and within you all of the presence and the power of the universe. And that's how it is with our faith. And some of you say, but wait a minute, didn't you say that the seed died, but not before it caused other seeds to come forth? Not before it grew in such a way that it provided shade to birds, and he talked about that in a place for birds to nest and other things to happen. Not before it made the contribution. And so as we let those things in ourselves go, we experience the contribution in our lives. Now, how does this happen? How does this come about? How how is it that we are able to experience a faith that is as a grain, a faith that is as the grain of the mustard seed? How do we experience that? I'm glad you asked. It requires work. Did I say work? It requires work. Inner work. I didn't know Ezekiel was going to read missionary. We really see inner work. Know that sometimes I can sound like a broken record when I talk about the fact that there is that inner work that we are to do. But it's a matter of the work that we do that makes the difference. A lot of times we don't want to work when it comes to our relationship with all that is. We want to have it. We live in a fast-paced, high-tech, low-touch existence these days. Everything, there's an app for it. We can get it instantly. I ordered a package yesterday. It's being delivered today. Even on a Sunday, you just never do that, but it's coming today. By the time I get home, it'll probably be on my porch. Things happening, and we sometimes feel like that in our spiritual existence, the same thing. But it's about cultivating that existence in the same way that we will cultivate and nurture a seed. We provide the hope for it. We provide those things. It's interesting that the master teacher Jesus, that when they came to him and they said, why couldn't we do this? His disciples said, why couldn't we do this? And he said to them that these kinds of things happen only through prayer and fasting. Now, we hear this, we think back again, but understand prayer, and I'm praying my prayers, but remember, our understanding of prayer in this teaching is not like a lot of other places, and I'm not discounting how other people pray or any of those things, but from our understanding, we don't pray to God for anything. We pray from the perspective of God. We understand already that we live, move, and have our being in a universe that responds to that which we place into it. It responds. It already is done in the mind of God. When you walked into this room this morning, you walked in and you didn't have to make the light come through the windows. It was already there. All you had to do was turn and look toward the window and see the light streaming through the windows because it was already there. It was already available to you. Now, if you chose to ignore the light, if you put on sunglasses or you turned your back to it or whatever, that's your problem. As my mother would say, that's your red wagon. But ultimately, the fact of it is that it's there. Sometimes it may be obscure. Sometimes it may not be instantly available to our perception. Sometimes we let other things get in the way. But ultimately, prayer from our perspective is that once we have the idea, once we have the intention, once we look at those things in our lives that we would wish were different, those things in our lives that we wish were a different way, those things that we wish to understand and experience and to have as a part of our lives, and then we set the intention, we plant the seed, we state what it is that we wish. Again, we're not begging and pleading and storming the gates of heaven. If you hear some people say, oh, please, 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 I'm not unworthy, but if you do it for me this one time, people that will bargain and all of those things, and trust me, I have been there. But when we state boldly and with confidence that this is already done in the mind of God, and I am here, I'm stating my intention. I know that I'm a part of this universe. I understand that I am an expression of all that is, an expression of the divine, and it is coming forth now. It is who I am, The mind of God is my mind right now. The life of God is my life right now. So I begin to understand that, and not just saying the words, but right deep down within, in that place within, that place where God shows up. I know this, I understand this. And I operate from this understanding. And as we do so, then things begin to happen. We release that prayer. We let it go. We say, so it is, and we know that it has happened. We know that it is doing there. Because we have all that is necessary. If you think about your kitchens, or most of your kitchens at home, there may be a particular meal or dish that you wish to enjoy. And you may go and buy all of the ingredients that you need. Some of them you might already have there, and the other little stuff you go out and you buy and you bring it in and you put it in the kitchen. It can stay there forever. And the dish is not going to make itself. If you figure that out, please let me know. You have to work with the ingredients. You have to use the ingredients. You have to put them to work. It's the same way in this dimension. The second thing that Jesus says to the disciples is this. He said to them, not only does it come out by prayer, but also by fasting. Now, people get all kinds of things about fasting, and I'm not talking from this perspective about a physical fast. There are many reasons to recommend that, many ways in which it works for us. But in this moment, I want to talk about a mental fast. I want to talk about those things that we remove ourselves from, because if you think about it, the fast is removing yourself from something or eliminating something. And in this way, it can help us to become focused. Because there's a whole lot of stuff going on right now. I said a whole lot of stuff going on right now. A whole lot of stuff that can distract us. Things that are happening. Things that are going on. Things that are being said. And if we allow them, they can take us off track. They can take us out. And we are just mental zombies walking around. Because we had all this stuff come to us, turn on the television, log on to the internet, look at social media on our phones, whatever else, and constantly bombarded by all of this stuff. I was good.
I wouldn't.
Bombarded by all of this stuff that will take us out, that will have us, as Ricky Byers-Beckwith says, walking asleep, dreaming I was awake. Let that settle in for me. Walking asleep, dreaming I was awake. So there's some things that we have to be very diligent about when it comes to what we will allow here. And you all remember a few months ago, I had a message. The subject was the castle of your mind, and how there's an important place for us to be on guard with what we allow into our mental space. And I will say this, the people that we allow into our mental space. Because there's a whole lot of folks out there that we give free rent in our minds that ain't worth it. And they get free rent. We worry about them, what they think of us. We worry about what they said, what they're doing, and all of those things. And half of the time, the folks that are out there that we're so concerned about, they ain't even thinking about us. And we think that we are. I remember a guy one time who had been in a program there at the University of Memphis where I teach, and he'd been a part of the department, and he had, for some unforeseen reasons, to drop out. And every time I saw him, he said, I want to get back in the program. I want to get back in the program. I would encourage him and say, come on, we're waiting on you, we're ready. He said, but I know what they must be thinking about me in the department. I said, well, I don't really think, I know they are. I know they talk bad about me and everything else. I know they are. And that's why I can't go back. I said, no, I don't think it's like that. Oh, yes, it is. I know it is. I understand. You don't know like I know. I know. We had a gathering one day. I was there with some of the other professors, or with the person who was over the grad program at the school and all of that. And I just slipped his name in, just to say something about him, to see what they really were saying about him. And there was deadly silence. And then I heard the word, who? And I had to go on and describe, oh, I think I know who you're talking about. And this person had been carrying around for over 4 years the idea that the reason why he couldn't get back into the program was because people there held something against him. And they didn't even remember him, to the point that they would have done anything to stand in his way. But we do that. We give people free rent in our minds, and we carry things on. And I've told you over and over and over again, the place where we have the biggest argument with other people is right here. So we have to refrain from those things. We have to fast from those things. And when we are able to do that, then we do our prayers, we do our fasting, that we are capable of that. And then we get what Jesus was saying when he said, faith as the grain of a mustard seed. It was several years ago now that I had a mystical experience. I moved back to the University of Memphis. I was walking across campus, and I was right there at a certain spot in front of the library. And in that moment, in that instant, I saw a vision of the entire universe. Just the stars, planets, all of these things, just vast. In a quick moment, it was like, shoo. And in the midst of that, I saw how infinitesimal I was in the scheme of things. Here I was, this little speck that really you couldn't even see in the vastness of the universe. And there I was, so caught up in my own stuff, my own problems and everything. And for me, it seemed that it loomed as large as the universe. But when I saw how vast and everything that the universe was, I had this humbling experience for a moment. So I stood there. Then I had one of the most affirming experiences ever. Because also in that very same instant, rather than the idea that I was next to nothing and meaningless in this vast place, I also got the assurance that in the midst of all of this, just how loved I am. Just how even in all of the busyness that is taking place with stars birthing and planets coming in the billions of years and stars dying and planets and populations, all of the things that the universe is tending to, that even me with my little stuff still cared for, loved, believed in, and it was conspiring on my behalf. That little mustard seed that's planted in the ground of the universe. And the good news is that don't just apply to John Marshall Gilmore. That's your story. That's your story. That's your story, our story. That in the midst of everything, we are loved, we are cared, we are important. Whatever mountains there are, there is enough in that infinite power, infinite love for me and for you. And so it is.
Participated today. We give thanks for the lesson, the music, the affirmative reading, the centering moment, and just all of the beautiful energy that each and every person has brought into this space and into this place today. Moving forward, knowing that, yeah, I see a mountain. The mountain might be my finances, my health, my children, my relatives, my job. Mountain can be anything. But there's a spot where there is this mustard seed. And when I plant that seed and I allow it to do what it needs to do, I become that spot where God shows up. I allow everything in the universe to do what it does best. When I stand in this place of praying, I'm not praying and begging and beseeching and please, Lord, if you just give me this one time. No. I stand in the spot of knowing that whatever it is already done in the mind of God, because I am the spot where God shows up. And when I move into that space of fasting, it's not, this week I'm not going to have meat, or I'm not going to do dairy, or I'm just going to have water. I'm letting go of all those mental things that are stopping me from being in the spot where God shows up. all of those people, all of those things, all of those situations that keep me blocked from being the spot where God shows up. Because I am that place. When I stand in that knowing, the mountain jumps into the sea. So I release, I let go, I let God show up, and so it is.